So we live in what sometimes can be thought of as an innocent misunderstanding about what will really bring us happiness. All of us. We have these ideas of what will make us happy. We think it's when we get our way in some way, when we think we'll be happy if we get something else checked off the list that's really been weighing heavily, or when someone we love, when they change in a certain way and cooperate with us, or we think we'll be happy when we get that promotion. So we latch onto substitute refuges. And we don't often reflect and ask ourselves, is this really going to bring me happiness? We're in the habit of latching onto them. I can say for myself that one of the substitutes that I've watched through the decades for myself, that this wanting to feel worth or worthwhile and latching on to getting others' approval, being really busy trying to be productive, get approval. I can remember even as a child being in some way aware that that would make me feel good about myself. And some years back, I had two insights kind of close together that really shined a light on this being what I call a false refuge. And by the way, when I use the language false refuge, it's not like bad. It doesn't work, okay? It doesn't work to seek approval, to feel good about yourself. So my first insight was I was with a client who did pretty much the same thing I did. It was just endlessly trying to, the self-improvement projects, one after another. And I asked a question. I said, because she felt like she was never enough. And I said, well, what would have to happen for you to be enough? When would you know you were enough? What would have to be the case? And in that moment, she shook her head and she said, I get it. I'll never be enough, according to my criteria. Now, I wasn't doing that to get her depressed. It was more to get it that she was on an endless hamster wheel. It would never be enough. And after I asked her that question, I said, okay, let me ask myself that question. And it was so helpful. I realized that it didn't matter what I accomplished. There would always be this sense of, that would last for about 30 seconds, the well-being, and okay, I pulled this one off, and then I'd be on to the next. I'd have to keep filling up the bucket, It was like it never sustained. My second insight was the moments that I remember very clearly, soon after asking me that and just getting that none of my strategies for worthwhileness would ever make it last. I was at a retreat and I got quiet and entered a very deep sense of well-being and just sensed this kind of an inner radiance and an open-heartedness, and it was the diamond in my pocket. It was like, oh, there's an inherent value to this awareness and heart that's right here. And then it became completely clear that my worth had nothing to do with anything I ever achieved. In fact, the moments I was trying to achieve things or rating myself on that were absolutely unstable and didn't work. That inflation didn't work and deflation, judging myself, didn't work. Worth was intrinsic and I had to get quiet. I had to kind of come home into the moment to have that radiance shine through. So we all do that in some way. We all have our substitutes. One man in a recent retreat in his 70s had a similar one to me. He was striving to be enough, and and at the retreat he had touched a lot of refuge and presence. And he said, I touched that sense of being enough, really deep peace. And then he said, sadly, why did I have to wait so long to realize I didn't need to keep proving myself? That's taking refuge in presence. But the first step is this inquiry, to start noticing how are we trying to feel better in our lives? How do we take refuge typically? And this is what the Buddha asked. He basically, and it's the inquiry of all spiritual seekers, is what really brings us happiness? What really brings us satisfaction? And it's not what we habitually think it is.